everybody, this is Joey Badkowski back at you with another episode of the Sober Shift, where we're trying to break the stigma of addiction, promote personal growth, and just live a thriving sober life. So, back at it with episode three. Uh, Today, kind of what I wanted to talk to you, everyone, about was I know that in the first episode, I went through a little bit and, really started talking to my personal journey and things of that nature, but I really kept it vague. And one of the questions I actually got from somebody was they were really interested to know, was it like my journey of recovery, was it all just kind of blah until I hit those rock bottom moments? Or were there little bits of lessons learned all throughout the way? And was it a gradual process of change? So I wanted to kind of dive into that a little bit more and give a little bit more insight of, kind of covering a couple of my different, miserable moments. Believe me, there was a ton to share. If I shared all of my miserable moments, I'd be on here for a very long time. But I wanted to kind of cover the top ones and then just from my experience, exactly what causes change in a person and what makes someone change, especially from my experience. I can only talk about, from my personal story. And then just kind of give a little bit of, maybe a couple of different lessons here and there that I learned along the way to hopefully, give somebody out there a little bit of hope and they can get something, maybe just one sentence from what I'm talking about today to hopefully kickstart their recovery. Or if you are already in recovery, maybe it just gives you that, one more day type of mentality. So here we go. So miserable moment. So I think, early on when I was kind of dabbling back and forth with drugs and alcohol, in the back of my head, I kind of suspected that I had maybe an addictive personality, but I didn't really want to admit it at the time because it was fun, right? It was still fun. I was still going out, I was still partying, I was still, you know, quote unquote making memories. But yeah, but it eventually got to a point where I remember vividly I was texting someone who I wanted to get something from and they didn't have it yet. And I was like, man, I have to leave. I can't wait any longer. So I remember I was on my way to work, which I worked probably about 35 minutes away at the time. And I was over halfway there. I probably was, 7 minutes away from work and I was going to be late already. And then all of a sudden I got that text message that popped up on my phone. I was like, hey, they came in. And I remember just driving and just immediately pulling off on the exit, didn't even think about the consequences of not going into work, and did a U-turn and went right back to where I just came from. And at that moment, I remember literally tearing up a little bit because I knew that I had a problem. Like this was not normal behavior to at this point I already had a daughter, I had a wife, I had a house, I had bills to pay, and I was on my way to my job and just out of nowhere just got one text message and said, "Yep, got to go back." So the first vivid like miserable moment was that one right there. It was just, "Hey, like I got to go." So I realized I had a problem at that point. And then I would say like the next one that comes to mind was just all the hiding and manipulating and going behind people's backs, especially with my wife. I remember the next low moment was it was a sunny day in the summer, and just the obsession and the compulsion in my head just would not leave me alone. So I remember like pulling her outside. We had a little patio out back and sitting her down and just telling her the man that she loved, the man that she married, had a problem with substances. And I could just tell it just tore her to the core. And she didn't know what to do. She's never experienced addiction before. And so having to sit my wife down and explain to her, like, yes, I have a problem. I'm admitting it. And just to kind of save anything, I just wanted to be truthful to her at that moment. Because a lot of times I would lie, 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 be full of shame and guilt. And then I just had these moments of, hey, I need to be honest. And so having to sit my wife down and tell her that I had a problem was another low moment. And these are all kind of gradual steps of, I guess, increasing severity, I would say, in my opinion, right? So realizing I had a problem, then having to tell my wife that I had a problem, and then, you know, losing multiple jobs just because of my actions. And, obviously everything that comes with losing a job. I wasn't able to support my family financially. I just felt helpless. I felt hopeless during all of those different transitions. And at the time, I always would point the finger, blame other people, blame the company, etc. It was never my fault. I never wanted to take ownership for my actions or exactly like what I was doing. But yeah, like losing multiple jobs was was definitely different low moments throughout my like early addiction. And then I vividly remember another one where I was sitting at my parents' table one day and we had got word that one of my good friends growing up had just gotten caught basically stealing his parents' credit cards and hiding the billing statements and racking up like tens of thousands of dollars of charges without his parents knowing because of his active addiction. And I remember I looked at my mom and dad and just told them straight up, I couldn't imagine ever stealing from my parents, like regardless of addiction or not. And man, did I eat those words, because fast forward literally probably a year later, I remember being approached by one of my parents with a picture of me at a gas station getting money out of an ATM with one of their cards. And just that feeling inside my stomach, if I think about it long enough, I can still feel that just, oh man, just heartbreak inside of myself just for what I had done. And then, those words literally flashed through my head when that picture was shown to me. So getting caught, stealing from my parents who pretty much had given me everything, raised me, etc. That was definitely another low moment in my early active addiction. And then, of course, my wife, like not really knowing, she was trying everything she could to help me out to her best ability. I mean, she's definitely been my rock through this whole thing, but everyone has their breaking point, right? So she eventually like kind of threw up her hands like, hey, I don't know what else to do. So I remember her driving me to my parents' house and just like dropping me off and like knocking on the door, and my parents kind of looking at me like, we don't know what to do either. And me kind of be sitting in the sit in this like, I had my wife on one side and my parents on the other side. And at that moment I just felt so alone. Like I didn't know what to do, my wife didn't know what to do, and my parents didn't know what to do. So that was a kind of aha moment right there for sure. And then I plan on talking about this in a lot more detail, because this one was kind of the biggest miserable moment that I ever had was losing my best friend to addiction. Uh, yeah, just that one kind of speaks for itself at that moment, at this moment at least. But yeah, just going through that, and someone that I used with, and all the feelings that come with that, with guilt, with shame, and you know yeah, losing my best friend to addiction was definitely one of the miserable moments during my addiction. Like I said, there was countless more, and I definitely don't want to sit here and talk about and kind of glorify any of the low moments. They were definitely not something that I'm proud of, but at the end of the day, I I learned something from every single one of them. Uh, Kind of looking back and reflecting on all the different things that happened during my active addiction, they all led me where I am today. They're I wouldn't be the man that I am, the father that I am, the husband that I am, without going through those different difficult moments. And learning the hard lessons that came from having to go through those. But in my experience, and I used to always, obviously this was a very gradual process, and I used to always think to myself, oh, I'm not that bad. I used to justify everything. And I remember going to a couple of NA meetings at the beginning, and just to really, I didn't really want to go, but it was one of those things where I told my wife I would go just to try and, mend things over, like manipulate her to think that, hey, I'm actually trying. And so I would go to a couple of these NA meetings early on, and I would listen to all these crazy stories. And I would just sit back. I wouldn't say anything. And I would just kind of think to myself, man, I'm not that bad. This is absolutely insane. But fast forward, and inevitably, every single thing that I heard in those meetings, whether it was like stealing, lying, manipulation, getting arrested, losing jobs, getting kicked out of the house, like all of those things slowly started to come true for me. And someone told me one time in a meeting, all those times that you said, I'm not that bad, you forgot one key word. I'm not that bad yet. And that yet, they told me, stood for you are eligible to. And man, did that not ring true for me. So, in my experience, there's two main reasons. I call them the two C's that people change. And those are conscience or consequences. And my story is filled with both of those. My conscience just getting the best of me, and then obviously all of the consequences that come from, getting wrapped up in that lifestyle. So yeah, so conscience and consequences. I think those two things, if you really boil it down, those are the two things, especially for me, that led me to change. So to answer the question that I posed at the beginning of the video, it was sort of both for me. I had a bunch of different rock bottom moments that were really, I would call, turning points in my road to recovery. But it was also gradual lessons that I was learning throughout the way as well. It wasn't like I was just super depressed or super hopeless during the entire time of active addiction. It was more of building blocks to get me to where I needed to go. And then those big rock bottom moments were like, hey, instead of going at like a little bit of a turn slowly, it was like, hey, hard left here. You need to go ahead and speed this up. So yeah, so I just thought that I'd come on here, jump on here real quick, go through that, share some of those, miserable moments that I had, and hopefully some different lessons, for sure. Like, I think that it can be overwhelming when we think that we have to change everything all at once. So just taking it day by day is a big one for me. I know it's easier said than done, but I know some of you out there listening might have these feelings of hopelessness, but there is hope. There is definitely hope out there. And this is kind of one of the big reasons why I wanted to start this channel, is to kind of share some of that experience, strength, and hope. And the main thing is, if I just want everyone here to understand that everyone's journey is different. People go through different things. And I know that when I first started, I was kind of a perfectionist in everything that I would do. So when I started recovery, I thought it was going to be this, aha, like, hey, I'm in recovery, I'm clean for a couple of weeks, and I put all of this behind me. But that wasn't the case. Like, my life didn't automatically get immediately better just because I decided that I wanted to get clean. Someone also told me, you had to go 100 yards into the forest. You're going to have to come 100 yards back. And that's been true. I'm still on the journey, and I still take it day by day. But at the end of the day, if someone hasn't told you today that they love you, this recovering addict does love you. I appreciate you listening, and please, in the comment section, I want to hear some stories from you guys. I want to hear some different things that you struggled with. Was it an aha moment? Was it certain, building blocks that led to your recovery? Or if you just need to, share something with me, I'm going to create, and I'll put it in the description of this video right here. I want to create a email, and it's probably going to be, at sobershift@gmail. But I'm going to throw it into the description link. If you don't feel comfortable leaving comments, please shoot me a message in the email. I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. But for that, take it one day at a time, and I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks very much.